All right, welcome back. We are in the section of the lecture discussing the third research strategy. The third research strategy is retroductive research strategy, and its underlying philosophy is scientific realism. Here we have another superhero, right? Another superhero. Oh, no, it's not. I'm not sure a hero or what. It's a villain. It's a villain here. Anyone knows who this is? Right?
Sometimes villain, sometimes hero.
Sometimes hero, sometimes villain, right? This is Magneto from the X-Men. Magneto. So Magneto has a power to magnetic power to control metals, right? But then at the right-hand corner there, we also have another villain, a misunderstood villain, right? That's Joker. That's Joker. Right? Then why do I put Joker? Now, the story of retroductive research strategies is, I say, retroductive research strategy, or this underlying philosophy, scientific realism, believes that, look, if you the only thing you talk is about surface matters, right? This what independent variable, dependent variable, a bit of moderating factor here, but intervening variable here. That's too shallow. It's too shallow, right? You're trying to see if you hear the bird chirping and the sun rises, the bird chirping, the sun rises, the bird chirping, sun rises. Because of the bird chirping, therefore the sun rises. You're getting the whole research wrong, right? Correlation is not causation, right? And a lot of research is about looking at IBDV, a bit of moderating variables here, we did that, but trying to tweak around, tweak here, tweak there, data analytics. So, retroductive research strategy and scientific realism say, look, we are missing the point. If we want to say that broken family leads to juvenile delinquencies, broken families from the families that are not stable, have problems, have problematic children, that is just two variables, right? That's just connection between two things, right? There's this connection between two concepts. Yeah? That's maybe inductive, deductive, maybe not. Retroductive research strategies is you want to see why is problematic family leading to problematic children. Why did Joker become Joker? Joker, if you watch Joker, right? A lot of people coming up from watching the Joker feeling sympathetic, some feel empathetic towards Joker. That Joker originally, from the beginning, he's not a bad guy. Just like coffee, they all hung up. Yeah? They all were high spirited, but you ignore them, and they become dingin, and they become cool. You do not pay attention to them. The society doesn't care, right? In fact, exploit them, abuse them, and they become cool. They become Joker. Right? So you want to know that story, that generative mechanism that is creating this phenomenon, is creating this empirical reality. Now that is what retroductive research pursues in this logical inquiry. To look at the causal explanation, to unearth the generative mechanism, the mechanism that generates the reality, right? Even though the mechanism cannot be seen, retroductive research strategy wants to bring up, to unearth, pull up using its magnetic force, right, to explain what causes this event that causes this empirical reality. So we will go into retroductive research strategy. We'll see why the U is so important. Right. Okay, retroductive research strategy. I'll start with the ontological assumptions. Ontological assumptions are assumptions about social reality, assumptions about what constitutes what constitutes the social reality? What are the components of the social reality? First of all, social reality is socially constructed, right? They believe in socially constructed reality, meaning the reality is being constructed, but it exists, number two, where it exists and acts independently of scientists and their activities. Right? Regardless of what scientists carry out, right? The reality exists. Right? And the third point is actually more important. The reality exists in three different spheres, in three different domains, at three different levels. First, the empirical level, which is a level that can be seen using human senses, can be observed. The other one is the level that's called actual, the sphere, the actual sphere, which contains the domain, the reality of events. So certain events might be seen, certain events might not be seen or observable, right? And then we have another level, which is at the heart of it, at the bottom of it all, the heart's heart, right? Which is the real sphere. The real sphere might not be even seen, right? Might not be even manifesting into events, but sometimes they can manifest. Now the job, so the world, sorry, I'll go before the job. Number four, the world can be described by observable phenomena with reference to underlying structures and mechanisms. I'll go to these three realities again, right? So the world can be described by observable phenomena with reference to underlying structures and mechanisms, which means this, that although the real sphere might not be able to be observed, but ontologically speaking, there are phenomena that are observable that can be made in reference to the underlying structures and mechanisms. This is a bit abstract. Let me give you a little bit of idea why the U is important. The U is like magnet, right? I ask you, has anyone seen magnetic power? Think about it a bit. Has anyone seen magnetic power? Magnet has power, right? Have you seen the power of magnet? You have not seen the power of magnet. No one has seen the power of magnet. But does magnet have power? Yes. Magnet, but you can see manifestations of the power. You can see how the power of magnet can attract the particles of metals. Right? Can even change the needles in the compass. Right? But you cannot see the power of magnet. Like veto power, you cannot see veto power. But you can see manifestations of veto power. You cannot see US dominance of the world. You cannot see it, you cannot touch it. But you can see the manifestations of that dominance, right? How US tries to manipulate this. They say they talk about countries being terrorists, countries being bad and all that, right? But the number one country that kills the largest number of people is actually the United States, right? Anyway, it's a bit of a political statement. So, coming back to this, right? So, a retroductive research strategy is to unearth, to bring out, to show there is power that is generating this reality. So, the power of magnet is at the real sphere, right? Whenever there's an event, for instance, it pulls particles of metals, right? That's an event, right? So the event is an actual event, right? So it is an actual sphere. But can it be seen or not? If it's been seen, it's an empirical level. It's at an empirical sphere. So empirical has to do with observation. So you go back to inductive and deductive. Inductive talks about observation. Retroductive talks about if you go observation, you're too shallow. If you go data and observation, you're too shallow. If you go data analytics alone, you're too shallow. You got to go deeper. As scholars, as researchers, as thinkers, as intellectuals, you got to dig deeper. And you got to go inside. You got to theorize. You got to build the model. Now that's epistemological assumptions. And 3 point can be a theory or data. hypothetical models of mechanism. You got to construct for the model of photosynthesis in order to see photosynthesis. If you do not have a model of photosynthesis, you cannot see photosynthesis. You see the sun, you see water being absorbed by the roots, you can see molecular activities in the leaves. But if you do not understand and you cannot put together all this mechanism, right, you cannot see photosynthesis. So you want to build a model of mechanism, and you got to test, verify using data. And then number 3, revealing the underlying mechanisms. Then you can talk about how sun has energy. You can talk about how water gives nutrients and the nutrients in the earth, and how leaves convert carbon dioxide into oxygen, right? These are all models. Right? But if you go data, you go at the empirical level, you might not see the real and the actual. So this is what retroductive research strategy is about. It's deeper, it's better, it's stronger, it's more insightful, it's much more intellectual. It's for PhD people like you, right? Next one, please. So this is the 3 spheres of reality, right? Let me explain a bit, but it might take a while. All right, okay. You guys have time, right? So we have 3 spheres there, right? Sphere number 1, sphere number 2, sphere number 3. So sphere number 1, the domain of number 1, right? Thank you very much, Rajan, for doing that. Right? Is the empirical sphere. Empirical sphere is the domain where you can see. You use observation, you can collect data, you can see, you can touch, you can smell, you can taste, or whatever else you can do with it. Right? So whenever you have an experience, right, of empirical sort, right, so you will have the empirical exists. So you see, what is that? You see the particles of metals coming to the magnet, right? So you see that events occur, and you can see it. So it becomes an empirical sphere. It also becomes an actual sphere, right? Why? Because fundamentally, at the most foundation of all, is the real sphere. The real thing that's happening is the magnetic power that no one can see, but has manifested itself by pulling the metal, the particles of the metals. But has it existed before? It has existed. The power has always been there, but people do not see it because there is no manifestation of that, right? The veto power is there of United Nations, right? They talk the United Nations be like a democratic institution. The United Nations is not a democratic institution. It's all fake. It's all false. It is monopolistic. It's oligopolistic. It's not democratic. It's been controlled by very few nations to dominate the world, right? But this is veto power, right? You cannot see veto power unless it's been manifested. This is what we are talking about. The real is not been seen, but the real sometimes manifests itself. That is the actual level. There's events, right? When there's events, we are talking actual. But certain events are observable. Certain events are not observable, right? Now, the job of the researcher, the job of a scholar, is to show, to demonstrate that the events that signify that proof the existence of the real. Right. Okay. So the next one first. So this is quite a page here we have. So reality, example magnetic power, have an independent existence, right? Like a real sphere. A reality that is claimed to exist and acts or has the ability to act, right? Exists, even if it has not manifested in the actual sphere, or it has not been observed in the empirical sphere, right? So realism is ultimately a search for generative mechanisms which produce a pattern of events, manifestations of the real sphere, like metal sticking to magnet, right? So you want to show magnetic power has magnet, has power, you bring. So as a retroductive researcher, you bring particles of metals or bits or ball bearings, right, closer to magnet, and you show that wow, magnetic power there's power to magnet, and not just that, it has also has north and south, right? North and south, which go against one another, right? These are all shown through some demonstration. But you cannot see the power, but you can see the manifestation, the demonstration that indicates the power, right? That shows the power. The existence, number 3, the existence of active generative mechanisms is independent from the events that they generate. So whether you can see the event or you can whether there is an event or not, it exists. Gunung Merapi in Jogja, it's erupting, right?
Oh,
Merapi.
I'm not sure.
I think it's erupting. So the active volcanic mountains is actually active, but you cannot see anything happening, right? Right. But once it erupts, you can see it's happening.
Yeah.
It's alive. It's alive, right? So such that they may be lay inactive or out of phase with the actual patterns of events, let alone seen empirically. Example, veto power, US world dominance in nuclear capacity, right? We cannot see nuclear capacity in a lot of countries, right? But well, the US has actually bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so that's a demonstration of US nuclear power, right? Yeah. So the existence, the idea now, the essence is this: retroductive research strategy is to show the real sphere. It doesn't go shallow discussion; it goes deep, right? It's not big data; it's deep data. Hence, 3 overlapping domains of spheres of reality exist: the empirical, the one that you can see, the actual, the events, and the real, the ones that are causing it, right? The task, this is important, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. The task of the social scientist is to unearth this generative mechanism and to develop an explanatory or causal model of what happens, right? What mechanism generates the event, or what mechanism generates the actual reality, and how does this process happens? He wants you to demonstrate that, right? So example, how do you build a model to demonstrate photosynthesis? Or how do you build a model to demonstrate that traffic occurs due to human values, road structures, lack of affordable and accessible public transport? This is retroductive research, right? When you build a model, you verify, test it, until you see that is a viable model that actually explain the unseen, right? So example, if we talk about traffic, then we zoom down to just one problem: traffic and human thinking, right? If all of us know, okay, we always know that. I've been to Beijing, by the way. All of us know, say, right? But let's not say Beijing. We say KL, Kuala Lumpur. 5 o'clock, there will be traffic jam at Jalan Bukit Bintang, right? Anyone who's been to Bintang will know. Well, Bukit Bintang is almost always traffic there. But 5 o'clock, there will be heavy traffic in Bukit Bintang. So we say, okay, let's. You say, okay, I want to avoid that. So I say, I won't go. I will leave my office at 5 o'clock. I'll leave my office at 6 o'clock. And you say that too. And then the other person say that. If everyone thinks the same way, what will happen at 5 o'clock? There will be no traffic. What happened at 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock, there will be traffic, right? But can you see this thinking? You cannot see this thinking, right? Although this thinking is real, right? But how do you demonstrate this thinking? How do you show that this thinking exists, right? Now that is a task of retroductive research strategy. There's the idea of scientific realism. So scientific realism as a philosophy looks at the real at multiple levels, at multiple domains, at multiple spheres, not at the just shallow level, but at the empirical, the actual, as well as the real. Then you can construct a model that causal explanation. That is retroductive research. Now that is good research. Next please. There. Magneto, coming back to magneto. Remember magneto? You can control magnet, you can control metals, right? Like magnet, there. So, maybe, okay. So the essences, there are three essences of retroductive research strategy. Number one, the most important of all is that the most important sphere is the unseen. Is the real sphere. This is interesting because the inductive, the positivistic, talk about the observation, is primary, is king, right? Here we have another research strategy, right, that says the real sphere many times cannot be seen. The structures cannot be seen. How can you see patriarchy? You cannot see patriarchy. Can you see capitalism? You cannot see capitalism. Can you see power, veto power, photosynthesis? You cannot see those things, right? But those things exist, right? But you got to demonstrate its existence. Right? Number two, construction of hypothetical model to capture explanatory mechanism. So the task is to actually capture that, to create that hypothetical model that capture this explanatory or generative or causal explanation. Number three is model verification, multiple testings. So remember we talked about entry point, the starting point, then how research strategies differ from one to another. So if inductive research talks about you got to start with data, observation, right? Then you build from observation pattern explanation to generalizations. That's data. Deductive says you start with theory first, and then hypothesis, propositions, and then you collect data. Retroductive research strategy says, well, it does not matter whether you start with data or you start with theory, as long as you build the hypothetical model and you test and verify the hypothetical model. You can be Einstein. You can be Sir Isaac Newton with apple falling on the tree on the head, right? You start with that data first. That's data, right? And then you say observation, creativity, and then you construct this idea of gravity and all that, right? So it doesn't matter. You start with data first or theory first, as long as you build model and find out what the explanatory mechanism is. Right? Next. So there are 6 steps. That's one. So the 6 steps of retroductive research strategy is number 1, you look at occurrences or you look at certain assumptions that people have about certain realities. You look at certain incidences, traffic. You look at delinquents, deviants. You look at drug addiction. You look at why are there a lot of youngsters graduating from big cities, do not go back to the hometowns and hang out in the big cities and pretending to be working, but actually they're not working. Only one of them is working, supporting the rest of them. This is phenomenon. Why are there this phenomena of left alone children back in the rural provinces, right? Why are there such? We do not have it in Malaysia, but big countries have that problem.
Yeah.
So these are occurrences, these are assumptions. Number 2, you develop a hypothetical model of explanatory mechanism. So you have, remember the photosynthesis bit, right? You create how things come together and you carry out observation. Number 3, right? Or tests, right? Number 4, you improvements on hypothetical model. You got to improve the hypothetical model. So you change the data, you change the theory. You change the data, you change the theory until you get the theory or the model right. So observations and tests and verifications. And ultimately, number 6, discovery of explanatory mechanism as discovery of generative mechanism. So you can say that, well, this is the magnetic power that I discovered. Or there's actually a magneto behind that that's creating all this havoc, right? So these are the 6 steps of a retroductive research strategy. Okay, we'll take a short break. We'll be right back. All right, we got to make sure that we stay on course. We make sure that we are on time.